Hello everyone and welcome back, or welcome to the Is That Brandon Sharing Thoughts podcast. So I thought in today's podcast I would kind of mix two different topics together. Well, it's basically the same topic but just in two slightly different ways. So firstly, I would like to just quickly talk about a show that I went to a couple of weeks ago, probably a couple of months ago when this podcast episode goes out, but a couple of months ago So obviously, I don't enjoy the whole going out, clubbing, partying, all that sort of thing anymore. I feel like I'm a little bit, it's not even necessarily mature, like too mature for that. I just don't feel like that's my kind of scene anymore. And there are so many other things to do to, have fun and see friends and network and go forward in life. So that's just a personal preference and a personal change in my life. I also feel that because I don't drink anymore, I don't necessarily feel left out, but I just feel a bit of like a side piece if I am going somewhere where people are drinking, partying, doing other things. Like I said, with my friendship group, very rarely does that happen. So yeah, for me, it's just not really my scene, and you're not going to probably see me in any of those places anytime soon. If you do, it's probably just for a birthday party or just a little one-off, but yeah, not on a regular, and definitely not boozing it up, as the young people like to say. But I thought the reason that I would do this podcast is basically just to kind of highlight an event that I went to. So I actually went to one of the clubs in Brighton, and I think that's the thing with all these different clubs and bars and restaurants, there's always the spontaneous and the random booking that people seem to have. There's so many different TV shows, reality shows, comedy shows, music shows. So there's always going to be someone where someone will go, oh, actually, it would be quite interesting to see what that's all about. So I actually met up with one of my, I want to say mutual acquaintances at the time, I'm just going to call him Q. So I'd met him a couple of weeks previously, and again, really nice guy, really nice French guy. And I think we very quickly realised that we were better as friends. So we kind of mutually agreed that we're going to stay as friends, or at least as mutuals. We haven't spoken in a while, but yeah, I guess we're both there just in case either of us wanted to meet up again. And anyway, I invited him to come to this club, and we actually saw a band who were previously from the X Factor UK, and was a bit of a blast from the past. And it's one of those acts you go, really? They got through? But yeah, Jedward, John and Edward. And that was the performance that we saw. So it was definitely very interesting. I'm not going to lie and say it was the best performance ever, because it obviously wasn't. But in terms of just the two of them and how much energy they have, they've both become very manly. There's extra hair growing on their face or on their body that they didn't necessarily have when they were on the show. The hair is still exactly the same, and their personality and their Irish excitement and bizarreness is still a thing. So yeah, in terms of the two of them, they haven't really changed much, and I think they've done a variety of other things since being on the X Factor show. I think they've done some sort of like musicals. They've been on and off dating apps and dating shows. I think they've gone to like premieres, events. And they've obviously turned into like the social media world as well. So they're kind of just doing a little bit of everything. I think they've actually become best friends with the GC, Gemma Collins, as well. So again, it's just very interesting. Once people apply for one thing or they have one opportunity, it can just kind of put them in the spotlight, or it can just allow them to open up other doors to things and to people that they would not have necessarily had before that opportunity. So I think what I also want to just quickly talk about, well, it's not necessarily quickly because I don't know how quickly this is going to be, but I think just me, my love, my passion, my interest, and my absolute admiration for the X Factor UK as well. I think, yes, you have X Factor USA, you have, all these other different talent shows and singing shows, but I think for me, the two that I watched the most were Britain's Got Talent and the X Factor UK. So what I'm going to do for this podcast episode, I'm just going to kind of do a quick overview of the X Factor from 2004 all the way up to 2018, where it kind of was coming towards an end. There was a few extra little spin-off shows, and a few people that are people that I know of, have had some sort of interactions with. So it's just kind of to give you a little bit of an insight as to what the show was all about. And, you know, although it's over, it did kickstart a lot of careers. You know, even people that didn't win the show, people that didn't even come in top 3, 4, 5 acts, you know, they may have gone out at boot camp, for example, but there were so many careers started from that show. And, you know, it would be interesting to hear from these people, to see where they've gone since the show. You know, I'd love to get some of the X Factor UK people on a podcast. You know, I'm connected with some of them on social media, but I think for anyone that listens to this, if you do know anyone, if you're networked with or connected with any of the X Factor contestants, no matter whether they got to the final or whether they ended up going out through the first audition, just get them in contact with me, and I would love to have a proper sit-down conversation with these people. And I think for me as well, I've also been through some of the process. So I never got to the live shows, I never got to the live auditions, for example, but I went through two different sets of auditions in front of, you know, the kind of producers and the execs and things like that, and actually, you know, never managed to get through to the actual audition. But it was very brutal, and, you know, you do have to have a kind of thick skin. And it's very interesting, just from having seen what I saw from my very small and minimal amount of time, you know, on the show, or that in the process of being on the show. You can imagine what these people will have felt, the ones that got through to like boot camps or judges' houses or the live shows, to then obviously have their dreams taken away from them, or to then propel them into the spotlight. It was kind of one of those two ways. It was either you never made it and you kind of just were forgotten about, or you made it and people actually liked you, that it didn't really matter what place you placed in the competition, people were going to be there to support you for whatever you decided to do. So yeah, I'll just do a quick bit of a run through. So let's just go straight away from the UK series 1. I think obviously this was 2004, so I was 6 years old, so I didn't really watch the show that much, I guess. I think I knew bits, you know, I saw bits and bobs on the TV, and it was more, you know, what we call now as like the older generation were the ones that watched it. I think even just thinking about who the presenters were and the judges at the time, you know, it was presented by Kate Thornton, and Ben Shepherd was on ITV2, and the judges were obviously your three, your trio of critics. You had Simon Cowell, Sharon Osbourne, Louis Walsh. So yeah, 2004 ran from the 4th of September to the 11th of December 2004, so it's only about 3 months. And the winning act was Steve Brookstein, who was mentored by Simon Cowell, and the runner-up was G4, who obviously was from Louis and the groups. So if I kind of go through who was actually in this series, so basically the people that got through to the live shows is you basically, for this series there was a variety of different requirements. So for judges' houses and boot camp, apparently after the auditions, each judge was just allocated a random category. So Simon Cowell had the over 25s, Sharon Osbourne had the 16 to 24s, and then Louis Walsh had the groups. I think at this point there was no boys and girls category. It was just the under 25s, the over 25s, and the groups, which again, that was a massive change going later on. So 15 acts went to the homes of the respected judges. And then, yeah, they either had to perform a song and then do some sort of cover. So if we go to the 16 to 24s, we had Cassie, we had Megan, we had Andy, Roberta, and we had Tabby. And Sharon had to get rid of a couple, so she got rid of Megan Ramsey and Andy Steed. Don't really know who either of those were anyway. And then for the groups, this was Louis. He had Voices with Soul, Two to Go, Fortune, Advance, and G4, and he ended up getting rid of Fortune and Advance. And then for the over 20, what groups? The over 25s. Where's the over 25s? I think the over 25s, you had Verity Keys, Rowetta Satchel, and Steve Brookstein, and I don't think anyone went home, or for some reason on here it didn't tell me who went home. So yeah, when we got through to the live shows, we saw the first person that went out was Roberta Howett, followed by Verity Keys, Two to Go, Voices with Soul, Cassie Compton and Rowetta Satchel. Third place was Tabby Callahan, second was G4, and first was Steve Brookstein. So if we just open the three of those, just see kind of what they did after the show. So yeah, Tabby Callahan, born as Trevor, was on the first series of the show. He was the last contestant eliminated because obviously the other two had obviously made it to the final. Since X Factor, he did a show called What Tabby Did Next in 2005. He performed at a pub in Liverpool, and he joined the Belfast City Beast contest for Young Star Search on 2008. He has released an album in 2010, a single called Gotta Get Control in 2011, and it looks like from about 2011 he kind of hasn't really been present, basically. G4, they were the boy band, so that was Mike Christie, Matthew Stiff, Ben Tapper and Jonathan Ansell. So they kind of went between 2004 and 2007, took a bit of a break, and then 2014 onwards. So they've reunited after 10 years. Despite their success, they were branded as a pantomime due to a stage conflict between the judges, which overshadowed the contestants. And yeah, in terms of, I'm trying to look at their success. So in 2007, they split up due to disagreements. They reunited back in 2014, so 7 years later. And then in 2018, someone left the group with immediate effect to focus on the opera career. They also announced that a person called Lewis Rains would be joining the group. And during their split, they did something in 2013. Christie is now a classical composer, I haven't written. Oh, so one of the boys went on to create a show, an opera show at the theatre. And in terms of their members, yeah, there was basically 9 different people that were in the group. So you had Jonathan Ansell, Mike Christie, Duncan Sandilands and Michael Conway. They kind of, actuals. And then former members, you had Matthew Stiff, Ben Thapper, Nick Ashby, Lewis Rains, who actually is now not in the group anymore, and Jai McDowell. So for the last 2 years, he was actually on Britain's Got Talent, which is very interesting. He won the 5th series of Britain's Got Talent, and he ended up being in this band for a couple of years. Didn't realise that. And then obviously your winner, Steve Brookstein. So yeah, he was the winner of the first ever series. There was obviously some sort of music controversy, and he appeared on a Portsmouth to Bilbao car ferry alongside Chico Slimani and Journey South. From 2011 onwards, he released an album in 2014, and he explained in a book of his journey going from winning the X Factor to having the press and the industry turning their backs on him completely. He's occasionally performed live at festivals such as the Bowdenbury Festival in 2013 and Morpeth in 2014. Again, haven't really heard anything from him since, so not really sure what he's going on to do. But anyway, that was Series 1. So let's go through to Series 2. So Series 2, again, you had Kate Thornton as the host, Ben Shepherd as the ITV2 host. Same judges. The winner was Shane Ward, the winning mentor was Louis Walsh, and the runner-up was Andy Abraham. So in terms of the selection process, there were apparently 75,000 people who auditioned for this series. So not loads of people, but quite a lot of individuals. For each of their categories, they had to sing one of several different songs. And when it came to the different groups, so you had, I'm trying to see who had which category this time. So yeah, Simon Cowell had the groups this year. Sharon Osbourne had the over 25s, and it was Louis who had the young 16 to 24s. So what was very interesting is the over 25s. So you had Maria, Richie, Hafer, Andy, Brenda, Joanne and Chico. So we obviously now know that this Brenda was Brenda Edwards, who obviously now is a loose woman. Chico is the, this kind of Spanish kind of individual who was just very loud and vibrant, and, that's what he is known for. But in terms of who got eliminated, it was Richie, Joanne and Haifa. All three of those got eliminated. For Simon Cowell in the groups, you had The Brothers, Fortune, Fourth Base, The Conway Sisters, Eskimo Blonde, Journey South and Addictive Ladies. I think Fortune were actually on the previous year, so they'd obviously come back. Journey South, again, another boy band. And then in terms of who got eliminated, it was Fourth Base, Eskimo Blonde and The Brothers. And finally, you had the 16 to 24s, which was Louis Walsh's category. And he had Shane, James, Alexandra, Shania, Philip, Nicholas and Trevor. And again, the three people we lost were James, Trevor and Alexandra. And again, Alexandra was Alexandra Burke, who ended up going on to win the show 3 years later. So, again, that was quite incredible. But yeah, it's just one of those things, you don't really know who these people are, and it's just really weird how, just looking back at these old series, how many of these careers were created, basically. So, yeah, you had Chico, you had Alexandra Burke, you had Brenda Edwards, and, you know, you had this band called Fortune, who had previously been eliminated. When it got to the actual live shows, so the winner, like I said, was Shane Ward. Andy Abraham came second, Journey South third. Brenda Edwards actually came fourth, which was, you know, a bit of a surprise. I don't even think I watched her series. And then you had Chico in fifth, and then everyone else kind of a little bit later after that. So yeah, that was series 2. Again, like I said, I was so young that I didn't really understand what was going on there. So we're going to move straight on to series 3. I think this is where I started taking it a bit more seriously. So again, Kate Thornton is the host, Ben Shepherd is the ITV2 host, and the judges were Simon Cowell, Sharon Osbourne, Louis Walsh, and Paula Abdul was the guest judge here. The winner being Leona Lewis, mentored by Simon Cowell, with the runner-up being Ray Quinn. So Simon Cowell actually became the winning judge, even though the series hadn't even finished, because both of his acts, Ray Quinn and Leona Lewis, did actually become the final 2. So he knew he was going to win that, but it was just a matter of who was going to actually win. 100,000 auditioned, 20,000 attended an open audition in Manchester. And I think there was a lot of hints by Simon Cowell that he was going to need a 4th judge. So when it got to boot camp, there was apparently going to be 7 acts for each of the judges that would remain. However, Simon Cowell admitted he made a mistake with his 7 failing to include somebody else, and asked the producers to allow one more person to go through, changing their act total to 24, so 8 each. For judges' houses, they were cut down to 12 to get through to the live shows. And there was actually a band called Avenue who were chosen to go through, but because they mid-led the judges over an existing record contract they had, they obviously were disqualified, and a group called Eton Road were put through in their place. So when it got to the actual groups, the over 25s and the 16 to 24s, with the over 25s, you had Ben, Katie, Jonathan, Robert, Tiwa, Lynn, Kerry and Dion. And Sharon Osbourne decided to get rid of Katie, Jonathan, Lynn and Tiwa. For the groups, which was obviously down to Louis Walsh, you had Brothers 1, the McDonald Brothers, Pure Liberty, Dolly Rockers, the Unconventionals, For Sure, Avenue and Eton Road. And he decided to eliminate, obviously, Avenue because due to their disqualification, Brothers 1, Dolly Rockers and Pure Liberty. And then for the 16 to 24s, which was Simon Cowell, you had Ray, Stacey, Ashley, Sean, Gemma, Leona, Carlo and Nikita. And he actually slashed them in half, got rid of Stacey, Carlo, Sean and Gemma. When it got to the actual results, so Leona won, Ray Quinn came second, Ben Mills came third, and then everyone else kind of just came wherever. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to have a look at the top 3 just to see what happened next. So I think Ben Mills, so he was third. Again, he was the last contestant eliminated. He was a manager in his hometown of a marquee hire company before he went onto the show. He actually released a second album in 2010 and launched an album party on, I think, 5 days later at a theatre in Canterbury. He was engaged to his girlfriend in 2009, and since August of 2024 they've announced the birth of their first child with another daughter called Isabella. So they're still together, which... Oh, no, it's a different girlfriend. Yeah, so 2016, Ben and Melissa divorced. and April 2021 he got with a lady called Layla. And since then, yeah, nothing really much has happened for him. And then obviously Ray Quinn, so he had a bit of early career life in the media industry. So he was in Channel 4 soap opera Brookside, and he was performed and credited through some different storylines that included things like bullying and murder. He obviously did the show and was dropped from the label. He also released his album the same day as Ben Mills. And yeah, so he released his first single within 8 years on 2015. In 2018 and 19 he appeared on Hollyoaks. He created another album which was released in 2020 throughout the COVID pandemic, and since 2024 he's been headlining at the Limelight Club on P&O cruise ships with his own show. He was married in 2012, and in March 2021 he spoke about losing his father to cancer in 2020. So yeah, in terms of his music, he the most recent thing he's done was Hollyoaks, and in terms of theatre, the most recent thing he did was 2018. And yeah, that's kind of it. He's gone a bit quiet now. And then obviously you had Leona Lewis, who was the winner of that series. So she had struggles and setbacks to actually get into the industry. She had a massive breakthrough 2007, 2008. And then she had a single from her album called Echo, which was called Happy. So that was released in 2009. She did a book deal. She released another Christmas album, and I think that's when she left the management. She did some collaborations and signed with Universal in June of 2014. And then, yeah, in July of 2025, she announced her upcoming Las Vegas residency, running from October 2025 to January 2026, which has obviously probably come to an end now. And in 2019, she sold her £2.25 million or $1 million Californian ranch, upscaling to a $3.7 million property in a guard-gated Hidden Hills in Los Angeles. She actually sold the property to Simon Cowell in 2020 and purchased her Studio City as her home in March of 2021. In terms of her film, so she was a supporting role in 2014, and then she did a animation voice role in 2023. She actually came back as a guest judge 6 years after she'd won the show, and then 2 years after that for series 15. And you can see here she was in a variety of different TV shows, performing as, on So You Think You Can Dance as a performer, on The Voice UK as an advisor in 2018, X Factor The Band as a judge in 2019, and The Masked Singer as a guest judge on the Christmas special, among other things. So yeah, they've all gone to basically do their own things. But yeah, it's just very interesting to see what some of these people get up to next. Series 4, you had Ray Quinn, so he was the winner here, and again you had the same judges, Simon, Sharon and Louis, but they decided to bring in Danny Minogue as well, and Brian Friedman for some of the London auditions. And then, yeah, in terms of the auditions, there was an open audition where 8,000 people attended at the Emirates Football Stadium, and there was an additional open audition held at Birmingham Alexander Stadium in 2007, and that was massive. That's a lot of people. We also found out here that midway through the first round, Louis Walsh decided to persuade the other judges to bring back some of the rejected soloists and obviously create a boys and a girls category. The themes, so the boys had to perform a song they'd released as their first single, the girls had to perform something that reflected the happiest or saddest part of their lives, the over 25s performed something to a younger audience, and the groups had to perform something by a famous pop group. And then when it came to the actual artists, so for the boys you had Andy, Dominic, Leon, Charlie, Ridian and Luke, and we lost Luke Bayer, Charlie Finn and Dominic Harris. For the groups, we had Same Difference, Ghost, Futureproof, W4, Iset, Cantante and Hope, and it was Simon Cowell who decided to get rid of Ghost, Iset, Cantante and W4. For the over 25s, which was Louis Walsh, We had Nikki, Akaro, Zaita, Beverly, Daniel M and Daniel D. And he decided to get rid of Daniel B, Akaro and Zaita. And for the girls, you had Kimberly, Victoria, Kim, Alicia, Stephanie and Emily. And Sharon Osbourne decided to get rid of Victoria, Kim and Stephanie. So in the end, it was Leon Jackson that won. Rydian Roberts, also in the boys category, came second, and that meant that Dannii Minogue was easily going to win because she had both of her contestants in the final. Same difference, which I think was one man, one woman. They obviously came third. And then you had, a couple of other people further down, but I don't really know many of them. So if we just have a little quick discography view at them. So Same Difference were only active between the years of 2007 to 14 and then in 2020. Their music was mostly targeted at children who were the ages of 13 and under. Their debut single We Are One was released in 2008. Debut album December 2008. And on December 24, 2014, they broke the news that they disbanded and were considering whether to release their third and final album or basically whether to not. They also reunited in 2020 for a spin-off single where all the charity money went towards the COVID-19 appeal, and their single One Life, One Love was released by SP Music on the 3rd of August, featuring the students of SC Studios. I guess from then onwards, there hasn't really been much. The boy, so Sean Smith, he ended up moving into musical theatre and solo music. His latest thing being in June 2025, releasing the single Feel This Love. They've also performed at a venue called the Concord Club in Eastleigh in November of 2016, and again, that's kind of where they ended. Rydian Roberts retired from performing in February 2023 with a farewell album. He's actually currently an artist manager at Neil O'Brien Entertainment. He explained that he was very proud of what he'd achieved on The X Factor. He's a showman. It gave him the chance to put on a show. And everyone noticed him for his trademark white hair and flamboyant dress. And then, he released his 10th and last album in February 2025 called My Very Best of My Life, A Goodbye Greatest Hits Collection. And he kind of stopped from there. And then with Leon, I think he also discontinued with Sony. And he was announced as the second biggest reality TV flop, only winning 76% of the 1,000 people that polled, losing out to Steve Brookstein. He has vowed never to perform When You Believe again, calling his X Factor success a curse, and he's no longer in contact with his mentor Dannii Minogue or Simon Cowell after being dropped by Psycho Music. He said he felt crushed after finding out through the newspaper that Simon Cowell had dropped him. He continued to do songwriting, so he actually co-wrote a song with Vince Kidd, who was actually on their Voice UK, called Sick Love. He worked on a number of songs with them. And then in 2016, he was residing in Los Angeles, hoping to write new music. Supporting a charity. And then again, from kind of that onwards, has just been very, very quiet. 2008, he was awarded the Sunday Mail Young Scot Award in Glasgow City Hall for being a positive role model to young people, and he was the host of the Sunday Mail 2011 Young Scot Awards, also being held in August of 2011. So, then we go to Series 5. So Series 5, this is kind of when I started taking the show a bit more seriously. So Alexandra Burke was the winner, the winning mentor being Cheryl, and the runner-up being JLS. So I think this was probably one of the series where, like I said, I started taking it more seriously. I was, 10 years old by this point. And Dermot O'Leary had replaced Kate Thornton as the host, and Holly Willoughby had replaced Fern Cotton as the spin-off. And then in terms of the judges, you had Simon Cowell, you had Dannii Minogue, Louis Walsh, and then obviously Cheryl was your fourth judge here. At this point, Cheryl Cole. But she ended up obviously changing her name slightly after as well. There were around 182,000 people that auditioned for the show. And there was a variety of different people that performed on the show, such as Beyonce, Mariah Carey, Britney Spears, Girls Aloud, Take That, II Devo, and even your Series 3 winner Leona Lewis, who all performed during the live stages of the show. So yeah, this was the 5th series of the show, and we were introduced to 2 teenagers. So 15-year-old Jade Thirlwell, who obviously 3 years later was going to become one of the quartet, winning as part of Little Mix, and 14-year-old Liam Payne, who would also 2 years later become part of One Direction. So I didn't actually realise that both of them were part of the 2008 series, but that was really, really interesting. Sharon Osbourne was apparently not going to return as a judge, and she announced her departure from the show, so there was apparently a bit of tension between her and Danny. So I think it was a bit of a complicated year, but they were just going to try and work out how and who they were going to get people involved. So for the auditions, 182,000 people, and then for the judges' houses, there were going to be 6 in each category to go to the homes, with each of them trying to impress. They all had a guest judge. So Danny Minogue chose Emma Bunton, Cheryl chose Kimberly Walsh, Simon Cowell had Sunita, and Louis Walsh chose Shane from Westlife. So for the boys category, you had Owen, Liam, Marley, Austin, Scott, and Alan. And for the boys category, it was Marley who was sent home, Liam Payne, again at this point he was only 14 years old, and Alan Turner. For the over 25, you had Daniel, Ruth, Louise, James, Susie, and Rachel. And he got rid of Susie, Louise, and James. Didn't really know who any of those were. The groups, you had Fourth Instinct, Girl Band, JLS, Priority, Bad Lashes, and Desire. And Louis Walsh got rid of Four Instinct, Desire, and Priority. So you had Girl Band and Bad Lashes, 2 girl bands. And then JLS, who obviously ended up becoming the second places for that year. And finally, the girls, you had Diana, Amy, Hannah, Laura, Anastasia, and Alexandra. So again, he got rid of Anastasia, Hannah, and Amy, giving you Diana Vickers, Alexandra Burke, and Laura White. So they were the girls that got through on that one. The actual results of the show, so Alexandra Burke came first, JLS came second, Owen Quigg came third, Diana Vickers was fourth, Ruth Lorenzo was fifth, and then everyone else kind of a little bit after that. So I think, they're kind of your top 5. I'm going to open up Laura as well, because I think she's really, really interesting. So we'll do Laura, Ruth, Diana, Owen, JLS, and Alexandra Burke. So Laura, I think, like I said, she came 6th, and she has actually been penned. She's written songs for multiple artists, including a song called New York Raining, which features Rita Ora. She co-wrote on a song called Love on Me by Galantis. She's worked with Beverly Knight, Naughty Boy, Hannah Grace, Miss Banks, Bugsy Malone, James Carter. She's recently written for Alicia Keys, Kelly Clarkson, Galantis, Ina, JP Cooper, Rag and Bone Man, Matoma Steps, Tiny Trumpet, Stormzy, and Tiny Temper. So quite a lot of people. She may have began as a singer, but has now gone on to do writing as well. She confirmed signing a publishing deal to Peer Publishing back in 2016. She released an extended play of music in February 2016, became a vocalist on a song in 2017, and then in 2023 released a single from her upcoming debut album, which she released in November of 2024, called Woman to Woman. And then in 2025, she went viral performing with DJ AG in London King's Cross, and that September, releasing a single called Northern Girl with Ricky Hatton. So she's done quite a lot of stuff here. Like I said, she was still active from 2009 all the way through 2025. Some of them, featuring, and some of them not. She's got a whole handful of different songs or songwriting credits, again, going through 2023. She also did a tour with Peter Andre, and she continues to perform in gigs and festivals. She's performed her own shows, and she had more dates back in 2020. Ruth Lorenzo, so she's a Spanish singer-songwriter, and obviously she was on the X Factor. I'm trying to see from her time on the show. So she was selected as a candidate to represent Spain at Eurovision, and she released a debut album in 2014, so it took her quite a long time to actually get her first album out. She was announced to join the 4th season of Your Face Sounds Similar, where celebrity contestants impersonate a different iconic music artist on stage, and she was declared the winner with 47% of the vote there. Again, through 2018 and 19, she's performed at different festivals. 2020, she was hosting a variety of different things. She was a presenter of Junior Eurovision Song Contest 2024, and she released her third studio album called Black Sheep on the 31st of October with her band. So again, she's done a variety of different things. There's a few shows that she's been in, a few TV productions. A lot of them seem to be Spain or Spanish. But yeah, again, it just gives someone a little bit of a platform, and then they go on and do some amazing things. Again, Diana Vickers. So I actually thought she came third. She didn't. She came fourth. But yeah, she had a debut single, Once, which charted. And I think she's one of my favourite artists from the show. Her career massively blew up. So she was mentored by Cheryl. She was in the same category as both Alexandra Burke and Laura White. I think that was one of the weeks where she wasn't able to perform because she was obviously ill, had some sort of illness. So that was really upsetting, but she still managed to carry on the show. She went on a tour in 2010 to debut her album. It had over 1,000 copies. And then, she ended up releasing the rest of the album, a second album, and loads of different side projects. In 2011, she had revealed that she'd parted with RCA Records, and she actually co-wrote a song by Enrique Iglesias and Jennifer Lopez called Mouth to Mouth for his new album called Euphoria Loaded. So again, a lot of these people doing their own thing, but also jumping onto other people's things as well. In 2013, she was part of a musical festival called Festival 2, Liverpool's International Music Festival, where she opened up for Olly Murs, and her third single from her Music to Make the Boys Cry album, Mad at Me, was released in December. She was the lead in a music video of a rock band of a song called Derail by Dinosaur Pile Up. And she was also featured singing on the One Direction television advert for the launch of their debut fragrance, Our Moment. So yeah, very interesting, just all the different people mixing together. In August of 2025, she made a return with her new single called Ice Cream. And yeah, she performed at Manchester Pride in August 2025. She also created a podcast 3 years earlier with her friend called Key, so Kiara Hunter, and obviously D for Diana, so she did that. And yeah, other things that she's done. I think she was in that stage production as well. And yeah, in terms of her acting career, she was in I Wish You Well, which was some sort of production. She ended up playing a character in a feature film called Dream. She was in Josh Widdicombe's comedy series called Josh. And yeah, in 2011, she launched an eBay competition on behalf of Comic Relief where they encourage people to become her Twitter best friend. So yeah, lots of different things happening, and lots of different TVs and films and all sorts of things. But again, she's still active, and most recently she performed at Mighty Hoopla 2026 as well. Owen Quigg, so he's obviously as of 13 as of now. He was signed with RCA between 2008 and 2010, and then from 2008 to 2010 with Sony as well. He came third. He was the winning singer for like 6 different weeks in a row, and he got eliminated in the final. Post X Factor, he appeared on the Late Late Show. Boyzone invited him on tour. He released his only album called Owen Quigg on the 6th of April 2009. He was one of the 5 acts rumoured to represent Ireland in the Eurovision Song Contest back in 2014 as well. He appeared on Alan Carr's Chatty Man. He interviewed his fellow finalist Alexandra Burke, and he started an amateur footballing career in 2015. In 2020, he had a hair transplant in Turkey, and he's maintained his singing career as part of a wedding band called The Housemates. So again, not really much from him. JLS, they've done quite a lot of stuff. They've been on TV, loads of different TV shows. Obviously, the original 4 members are still there. They've won all sorts of awards. The Urban Music Awards, the Brit Awards, the MOBO Awards. They've released so many different albums. They co-headlined all different tours. So they had their tour in 2010, 11, 12, 13. Their Everybody Say a JLS tour in 2023. The Club is Alive Hits Tour 2025. They had the X Factor Live tour with obviously some of the other contestants, the US Summer Tour 2010, and the Summer Tour in 2011 with Ollie Murs. And their latest album, I think, was released so far in 2021. And then in terms of your winner, you had Alexandra Burke, who, since her time on the show, has appeared on things like Channel 4 Celebrity First Dates. She explained that she'd actually received some sort of like racism within the musical industry, and in 2022 that she was expecting a baby with her boyfriend Darren Randolph. She's been in musicals, so Sister Act, The Bodyguard, Joseph and the Amazing Technicolor, Dreamcoat, I'm Every Woman as well. That was only in 2026. And she's done a variety of different shows as well, such as So You Think You Can Dance, Should You Come Dancing. She's been a guest panellist on Loose Women, Celebrity SAS, third series, RuPaul's Drag Race, and a variety of other different shows as well. And again, nominated for a lot of her work. So she's still very active, not, always doing things, but I think that's the thing, just every so often just popping head into the spotlight. And again, she also performed at Mighty Hoopla 2026. So Series 6, this was Joe McElderry's year. So you had Simon, Cheryl, Danny and Louis again. Cheryl was the winning mentor for that year, and she actually was the only judge at this point to have won 2 shows back to back. So she won the previous year with Alexandra Burke with the girls category, and then again in 2009 with Joe McElderry. Auditions were held in both June and July of 2009 across London, Birmingham, Manchester, Cardiff and Glasgow. And due to a change from the previous series, the auditions were now held in front of a live audience. However, anyone that performed in Glasgow, they'd already been judged using their old format, meaning they had to apply again because their initial audition was now basically void. Apparently 200 acts got to boot camp, and again they were split into their 4 different categories. So for the boys category you had Joe, Lloyd, Daniel, Ethan, Duane and Ricky, and the boys category was from Cheryl. She decided to get rid of Ethan, Daniel and Duane. The groups, you had Project A, Candy Rain, Detour, Harmony Wood, Miss Frank and John and Edward. And Louis Walsh decided to get rid of Detour, Harmony Wood and Project A. The over 25s, you had Ollie, Tracy, Daniel, Nicole, Daniel and Jamie. And he decided to get rid of Tracy, Nicole and Daniel. So Tracy Cohen here, I remember she was really, really good. And then obviously for the girls category, you had Stacey S, Stacey M, Rachel, Despina, Lucy and Nicole. So I didn't really know Despina, I didn't really understand Nicole, but Stacey McLean, she was beautiful. She was absolutely gorgeous, but I guess you can't have 2 Stacys. And the other one was Stacey Solomon. So, her career blew up from being on the show. So when it came to the results, girl group Candy Rain were the first ones out. I think that was kind of the norm with the X Factor. The girl groups just never did very well. Week 1, week 2, week 3, that's probably the furthest that they were able to get. And then again, Miss Frank, 3 weeks later, they got eliminated. And then a couple of the girls went out, and then you were kind of basically just left with the overs, the groups, 1 boy and 1 girl who ended up getting to the final. But you had Lucy Jones in that series. Obviously you had John and Edward, who I've spoken about already, Stacey Solomon, Ollie Murs and Joe McElderry. So let's just have a look into all of them. So for Stacey McLean, so she's actually from Blackpool originally. She was present from 2001 until 2005 with Polydor, and she was actually part of the auditions for S Club Juniors, and she managed to get a place. She was in the group alongside her bandmate Rochelle Humes, and she wore her hair in a naturally curly hairstyle. They released 3 singles and an album, and they guest starred in Viva S Club, and they disbanded in 2003, whilst keeping the group going, renaming it to S Club 8, and then obviously just changing the name of their band. So I didn't realise she was in that. She also auditioned for the X Factor in Manchester, singing Christina Aguilera's song Ain't No Other Man, and she made it through to boot camp, and then obviously didn't quite make it to the top. In terms of her recent work, so in 2010 she took up a job as a receptionist at radio station TalkSport. She began a 6-month tour of the UK as one of the stars in G Mania, an singing all dancing stage production. And then again, as 2025 came around, she became and performed as a wedding singer. She was previously married to a footballer called Fraser Franks, gave birth to a daughter in 2019, and then her separation from him 3 years later, and then also confirmed the divorce in 2024. So yeah, she actually did quite a lot before X Factor. She was in S Club The Search, S Club Juniors, Top of the Pops, and then obviously X Factor, and then she was a line-up contestant on Nevermind the Buzzcocks. So I think it was more of just she was in a queue and they had to just decide whether she was or wasn't known to someone. So yeah, that was her. Lucy Jones, again, she didn't win. She didn't do that well on the show, but she was mentored by Danny Minogue. She was signed straight away to Select Model Management, doing a modelling career. She was in the West End production for Les Mis. She also appeared on the Sarah Jane Adventures and in the 2013 Arena Tour for We Will Rock You. So she did quite a lot of that sort of stuff. She was also the Eurovision Song Contest representative for the UK back in 2017, singing Never Give Up on You, which was actually co-written by the winner of 2013, Emily de Forest. So that was in Kiev. We ended up scoring 111 points in total, so that wasn't awful. She returned to musical theatre in 2019. I'm just seeing what else she did here again. Back to Les Mis. She played Elphaba in Wicked. I think she also performed in... she also performed another music festival thing somewhere, or she was in The Waitress or something, and I had tickets, but for some reason I just wasn't able to see it. She was also on a show at the Battersea Arts Centre called Going on 30. That was from September 25 to August or October 2025 at the Manchester Opera House, and it included people such as Grace Muat, who actually ended up becoming one of the girls on a Six the Musical, and a guy called David Hunter. And in February 2026, she's performed her largest sold-out show at the London Palladium, so that's really, really interesting. I didn't realise that she was, still going on with singing, but she did all sorts of stuff. Yeah, X Factor, then went on to a variety of Eurovision stuff, loads of acting. Yeah, Waitress was 2019-2020. Les Mis was 2021. Wicked was 2022. Les Mis again 2023. Les Mis again 2024 and 5, and then Waitress again 2026. So I think it was one of those that the show just kept going on, so she just managed to keep doing stuff. Jedward, so obviously they've released 4 albums since being on the X Factor. They have performed at all different clubs and pubs and bars. They were the tongue-in-cheek act, and they've done adverts for things like East Midlands Trains, Roundtree Randoms, Disney Universe, and even a travel supermarket commercial with Omid Djalali, the comedian. They've done stage productions. They played the Fairy Godbrothers in Cinderella, Jedward and the Beanstalk in 2012, and Jedward and the Magic Lamp. And their 4th and final pantomime was Jedward as in Beauty and the Beast. Some of their biggest fans included Pixelot Robbie Williams, and Leona Lewis said that she was worried about them. Prime Minister Gordon Brown at the time said that they were not very good and later apologised. And yeah, in terms of recently, like I said, they performed at Revenge nightclub. They've obviously had all sorts of different TV shows. I think they actually went on Celebrity Big Brother in 2011, Eurovision in 2011. They had a Christmas party in 2017. And they've most recently been on the 4th series of Celebrity X on the Beach. So they're not doing things. Stacey Solomon. So she is the partner of David Solomon, who's actually a photographer. And yeah, in terms of her albums, she's released a couple. She's been on TV. So she was on I'm a Celebrity, Get Me Out of Here in 2012, being Shaun Ryder, becoming the Queen of the Jungle. So that was really, really good. She appeared as a guest on Loose Women in 2010, and then actually quickly becoming a regular panellist alongside Lisa Riley after Vicky Patterson and Jamelia left the show. She was on a show with Keith Lemon called Sing If You Can. She was also on The Love Machine, so that was a dating show with Chris something. I'm trying to see where it was. It was years ago. So yeah, I'm a Celebrity and X Factor, and then yeah, Celebrity Juice. The Love Machine was with Chris Moyles. Yeah, I remember that. That was from the 11th of March 2012 to the 1st of March or May 2013. He had Through the Keyhole, and Next Saturday Night Takeaway, Would I Lie to You, Michael McIntyre's Big Show. She was on Love Island After Sun, Crystal Maze, Celebrity Catchphrase, Celebrity Gogglebox, Sort Your Life Out from 2021 onwards, so she's been doing that for the last 5 years. Bake Off The Professionals, all sorts of spin-off shows like Crofty Christmas and Renovation Rescue. A show or series called Stacey and Joe, and then she was actually a guest judge on Britain's Got Talent for 2 episodes as well. So yeah, she's been very, very active since 2009. I presume she still sings. She's got her own house. She's got 4 or 5 kids, and they all look like great. They look like they're going to be, nice children. So obviously with Joe Swash as well. So yeah, she's done quite a lot, and still very active on on Loose Women. But speaking of Ollie Murs, he was the runner-up. Again, I think he's done very, very well. He's released so many singles. He presented the World Cup's 50 Greatest Moments alongside Rio Ferdinand. He was on a CBBC show as the remote control star. He was confirmed as a voice coach in 2017 and then left after 5 years. He hosted a show called Happy Hour with Ollie Murs and invited guests on such as Bradley Walsh, Tom Jones, Emma Willis, Megan McKenna, Rochelle Humes, Chris and Kem from Love Island. He's done all sorts of football things. He's released books. He's done a Sports Relief performance with Rizzle Kicks back in 2012. He was on Dancing on Ice, I think. He stood in for somebody for 1 week whilst rehearsing for Dancing on Ice. He presented a Christmas Day radio show with Caroline Flack. Unfortunately, he wasn't here anymore. Some sort of voice acting for Disney. And then in terms of his personal life, from 2024 of September, he was the subject of the TV show Who Do You Think You Are, with the help of historians exploring the lives of his Latvian ancestors. So yeah, about 8 or 9 albums, all different sorts of tours. He supported JLS in 2011, Ollie Murs, One Direction in 2012, Rob Williams in 2013 and Take That in 2024. He's been on shows such as Deal or No Deal, which was actually before X Factor, Soccer Aid, Celebrity Juice, again, Britain's Got Talent, Top Gear, Loose Women, Michael McIntyre's Big Show, The Voice UK, The Cube, Starstruck, Who Do You Think You Are, Michael McIntyre's Big Wheel as a celebrity on a takeover segment, and even The Masked Singer, where he was a guest panellist. So yeah, again, he's done very, very well. And then finally for this year, you had Joe McElderry. So we all know him as singing Miley Cyrus's song The Climb. He did end up getting an award 3 years later called the Variety Silver Heart Award. And in terms of his personal life, so he released a song called Abide With Me on the 14th of April 2013 in response for Prostate Cancer UK. He took part in Soccer 6 on the 18th of May. And he released a charity single with Dionne Warwick, One World, One Song, where they performed that at the Royal Albert Hall, raising money for the Hunger Project. In 2010, shortly after winning the show, he came out as gay as well. So, yeah. It's he was a very interesting character. I think he did go on to do some singing programs as well, but I think he's just more kept himself quite quiet rather than being in the spotlight. But again, really, really proud of everything he got through. He was only young at the time. I'm not actually sure how old he was, but I know he was very young when he was on the show. Series 7, so this was Matt Cardle. So this was 2010. So this is actually the first of 2 Matts that won the show, so that's just a little hint. Again, you had Louis, Danny, Cheryl, Simon, and you had Connie Huck, who was presenting the kind of the second part. When it came to the act here, I think this was kind of one of my favourite years. This was one of the years where I was like, oh my goodness, I actually love this show. So for the boys category, you had Nicolo, Tom, Paige, John, Carl, Marlon, Matt, and Aidan. So in terms of the boys category, it was Danny Minogue, and she had to get rid of 4 people. So she got rid of Carl, Marlon, Tom, and John. And her wild card was actually Paige Richardson, who, long story short, I think I found him on a dating app, and we did chat for a little bit. That didn't really go very far. And then for the over 28s, you had Stephen, Yuli, Justin, Wagner, Mary, John, Alicia, and Storm. And Yeah, so they were in the overs category. So Louis Walsh ended up getting rid of half of them. Didn't really know who any of those were anyway. And apparently Alicia was going to go home, but because they couldn't bring someone back, they didn't know who to bring back, they just brought her back. For the groups, you had Twem, Bellamy, Princes and Rogues, Hustle, The Reason, FYD, Diva Fever and One Direction. So this was the year where the groups were starting to become a little bit better. Again, got rid of some of the groups there, and Diva Fever were the wild cards. And finally for the girls, you had Rebecca, Gamu, Anastasia, Raquel, Kerry, Katie, Tracy and Cher. And again, we got rid of people like Kerry. I think Anastasia Baker had performed twice. So she was actually in the show 2 years in a row, so we'll talk about her towards the end, but she got eliminated from 2008's year and also 2010. And then in terms of the actual results, so Matt Caldwell won, you had Rebecca Ferguson coming second, One Direction third, again Cher Lloyd fourth, same place as Dinah Vickers 2 years later, Mary, and then kind of everyone else. But yeah, in this year, Bellamy were great, beautiful. Aidan Grimshaw, really, really good looking guy. Paige, like I said, didn't really know much of her. Him even. Katie Waisel, she did alright. And then if we just go Cher, One Direction, Rebecca and Matt. So yeah, Anastasia Baker. So yeah, she was in the show 2010 and 2013. 2008 and 2010, but yeah, she didn't make it through. She did launch a video to her first single in December of 2013, followed by a second single June 2014. And she was invited to perform at a Barbados Gospel Fest and completed the recording of her first album, U-Turn, which was released to a sold-out audience in a jazz cafe on the 14th of September. She was a contestant and a finalist on an ITV talent show called Starstruck, where she was impersonating and performing as Tina Turner. And in June of 2015, she released her debut album, where the song First Love was the lead track, and kind of since then her page hasn't been updated. Bellamy, they were active between the years of 2010 and 2014. Again, girl band. So Esther Campbell, Sophia Wardman, Rebecca Creighton and Geneva Lane. Again, they all auditioned as soloists. Their debut single Girls Up was released in 2011. Lane left the group. Creighton left in 2012, and the rest of the group decided to split up in 2014. Yeah, again, you had one of the girls say that her time in the band was absolutely brilliant, but as time went on, realised that it wasn't what she wanted, and she missed performing with a live band and songwriting. They signed with Dodiant Records. They appeared on The Crush, performing a cover of Tinchy Stryder and Dappy's song Spaceship. And on the 30th of September 2011, they released a snippet of their song called Shine. Esther and Rebecca revealed that the group planned to release the debut album sometime next year after they released several singles. It was announced that Rebecca had left the group to pursue a solo career, leaving Esther and Sophia with an undetermined future. So they were kind of just left, basically, to just do whatever they needed. So yeah, Geneva was there for 2 years, Rebecca was there for 3. Esther and Sophia didn't really know what they were doing. They were kind of just stuck. And yeah, again, haven't really heard from any of them, but it's, it's a shame because some of these people can use their contacts and people that they've met to progress further, but some decide that the industry is just not for them anymore. For Aidan Grimshaw, again, he performed a song called Gold Digger with Simon Cowell saying, "That's what I call a pop star." So I think just straight away he was incredible. His albums, Misty Eye, the first one and the only one that he's released in 2012, fantastic. And yeah, I think he did a little bit of TV after that and then kind of went quiet, but I know he is still releasing music now, so yeah, I think bring him back. Katie Waisel, so she was eliminated as the 10th contestant eliminated. She ended up going on to Celebrity Big Brother, where she finished in 8th place. And other TV appearances were in a show called Vanderpump Rules, and she was on a show called Question Time, where she was having to answer questions about Russia's invasion of Ukraine. In 2025 July, she joined the Policy College of Advanced UK. Not really sure what that is or was, and again, very quiet after that. Sherloid has been present since 2010, so she's been around for 16 years. Her first solo single, Swagger Jagger, entered number 1. And then she had her first album released in 2011 called Sticks and Stones, with her second album called Sorry I'm Late. She debuted a single with an American singer-songwriter, Demi Lovato, called Really Don't Care. Completely forgot that song even existed. In July of 2016, she released Activated, None of My Business, and MIA in 2018. And then she released a couple of other songs in 2020, such as Lost, One Drink Away, Baddest in 2011. She had a bit of a hiatus for 4 years, and then she released Head Down and Green Light within 2026, releasing a song called Sweet Devotion. So she was an X Factor, shortly signed to Psycho, had a bit of a hiatus, changed her label, and she explained in a video in March of 2016 she wanted to thank people for being so patient. It's been a while, but it's definitely worth the wait, and she can't wait for people to hear what she had worked on. And she said some of her influences included people like Dolly Parton, Nicki Minaj, saying that people had an attitude and people are doing what they feel like they should be doing because they are who they are. Nicki Minaj helped change pop music, and there's absolutely no denying it. In 2012, she released a statement saying that she was engaged to her boyfriend, married in 2013, and in 2018 having their first child called Delilah Ray. In 2023, she announced that the couple were having their second daughter, who came out on the 9th of September. Again, after X Factor, she ended up performing 1 year later on the US version of the X Factor as a performer. She was on Big Time Rush, and she ended up being on the Halloween version, or the Halloween special of Celebrity Juice with Keith Lemon. She also supported her own 2 tours with her 2 separate albums, as well as the X Factor tour in 2011. She was on a tour called Whatever World Tour with Hot Shell Ray, the Red Tour with Taylor Swift, and the Neon Lights Tour with Demi Lovato. So again, I think at the time, because she was doing really, really well in the UK, and she was obviously doing quite well in America, she was being taken under people's wings, and obviously now has done her own stuff. The latest TV award or nomination she had was the Radio Disney Music Awards, where she was nominated for Best Breakup Song, but she won the Best Musical Mashup Collaboration. So yeah, again, she's still active, so it's always good. One Direction, again, the 5 boys auditioned as individual artists. Unfortunately, we now know that Liam Payne is no longer with us, but they signed their deal straight away. They were together and then they broke up, and they had all sorts of solo careers with all different, bands and individuals and collaboratives and things like that. They were on iCarly, they were on Saturday Night Live. They had a documentary concert film called One Direction This Is Us, and One Direction Where We Are, the concert film. And yeah, I mean, if you look at all 5 of them individually, so you have Niall, who's gone on to release albums, Harry Styles, who is obviously now selling out Wembley by himself, Louis Tomlinson, who I think again has also done some collabs, and then you had Zayn Malik. So he was the first one to leave the band, but he's collaborated with people such as Sia. So the first person, we didn't really know who she was, but they've all started doing their own little thing, and they're all on their own journey basically. So it is good to see that they're still doing stuff. Rebecca Ferguson, so she came second that year. Again, lots of different music, lots of different albums. She was nominated for all sorts of awards in 2012, which was obviously a couple of years after being on the X Factor. And again, since that, quite quiet, but since 2017 she's been making appearances on Loose Women. Her latest appearance was in April of 2019, but again, I'm sure these people are doing stuff behind the scenes, and I'm sure they'll come back and surprise us with some new music. Matt Cardle, who was actually the winner, who actually has the same birthday as me, different year, but I didn't realise his birthday was the same birthday as me, so that's quite interesting. So he won that year. He released a song with Mel C, so Mel Clark. He released his 4th album, Time to Be Alive, in April of 2018. And again, he's been on all sorts of live tours and things. He had a copyright lawsuit publishing the song Amazing, which was written by himself, and apparently the song was claimed to be plagiarised by Ed Sheeran with the song Photograph, written in 2013. The lawsuit ended, and it led to a £20 million victory, so £16 million for Matt Cardle, which was quite interesting. So yeah, that was 2010. Bit of a highlight, but yeah, I remember that was almost like it was yesterday. 2011, again, this was the year that Little Mix won, and I'm very, very happy and very, very proud, and I will always be proud of them as well. So this is again a bit of a year where the guest judges changed as well. So you had Louis Walsh, and then you kind of got rid of everyone else, and we had Gary Barlow, Kelly Rowland and Talisa Kontostavlos, so they replaced the other three. Alexandra Burke also served as a guest judge for a couple of months, just because Kelly Rowland had a bit of a throat infection. Initially, Little Mix were obviously 4 individuals, so you had Jessie Nelson, Leanne Pinnock, Perry Edwards and Jade Thirlwall, and when they were eventually put together, they were called Rhythmics, and because that became a name for a charity elsewhere, they obviously had to change their name, and they decided to go for Little Mix. A number of celebrities were linked to the judging panel, such as Frankie Sanford, Alicia Dixon, Lily Allen, Mel B, Ozzy Osbourne, and obviously Noel Gallagher. And yeah, for the applications process, it was the first time contestants could just upload a video on YouTube. Didn't realise that as well. And the auditions took place in Cardiff, London, Glasgow, Liverpool, Birmingham and Manchester. There was 191 acts attending the pre-bootcamp party, and this was at the Selsdon Park Hotel in Croydon. They cut 39 acts, leaving 152, and these were split into 30 different groups to perform at Wembley, given one of 6 songs. You got The Love, Break Even, Price Tag, Born This Way, Forget You or Firework. They then went down to 80, and they actually formed 6 new groups. New Vibe, Faux Pas, The Lovettes, The Risk, Misfits and Orion. They then chose their final 32 acts and included 31 acts that had previously entered, 3 of the new groups, and the final group, which was 4-piece girl band Little Mix, which was made from 2 members from Faux Pas and Orion. So I didn't realise that. That was quite interesting. So there was a 4-piece girl group. It was made from 2 members each. So 2 of these girls were in one girl group and 2 of these girls were in another girl group, and they actually brought all 4 of them together. So when it came to the groups, you had the Keys, the Estrelles, Girl v Boy and the Lovettes, but they all went home. And the ones that went through were The Risk, Two Shoes, New Vibe and Rhythmics. I think The Risk and New Vibe, there was quite a lot of different guys going on in those groups, and I think even later on during the years there was just a lot of changes, so those groups never remained as they were, and I think that's why they all disbanded, because there was either too many people in the group, too many voices, too many opinions. They couldn't solidify themselves enough or have a big enough fan base, so I think it just made sense for them all to just kind of split up and do their own thing. In terms of the girls, you had Jade, Sarah, Melanie and Holly, so they all went home, and the 4 that remained were Amelia Lilly, Sophie Habibis, Misha B and Janet Devlin. Again, very strong girl group there. 4 girls basically. The over 25s, you had Johnny, Sammy, Terry, Carolyn, Joseph, Goldie, John, Joe and Kitty. We lost Terry, Carolyn, Joseph and Goldie. Again, I remember Carolyn had a great voice. She was like a rock chick, beautiful lady with brown hair. And then for the boys, you had Frankie, John, Joe, James, Max, Luke, Marcus and Craig. And we lost John, Joe, Max and Luke. Yeah, I'm just trying to see if I recognise any of those people. So yeah, you had Carolyn Paul there. So I'm going to have her on a separate tab. You had Melanie McCabe. I remember her as well. She had a fantastic voice. And then when it got to the results, again, Little Mix won, followed by Marcus Collins, Amelia Lee, Misha B, Janet Devlin. So again, very strong year for the girls, because you had Amelia, Misha and Janet all in the top 6. Followed by, loads of people at the bottom, including some of those groups. Like I said, Two Shoes, one of the girl groups going out early. Frankie Kokoza being kicked out because of how he acted on the show. Kitty Brucknell, again, she did quite well. But yeah, just very alternative. But yeah, the ones I wanted to focus on were Janet, Misha, Amelia, Marcus, and the Little Mix girls. So yeah, Carolyn. So I remember Carolyn Paul. I think she's now Carolyn Wiley. So she's had her name changed. She was on a BBC talent show called Fame Academy in 2003, where she finished 3rd. And then obviously 8 years later went on to the X Factor. She married a footballer called David Paul, and obviously that's when she changed her name. She had a debut album and she relocated to America for 5 months, gigging in Arizona and Los Angeles. She collaborated with a variety of different singers and songwriters, including Jeff Silber. She received some airplay on BBC Radio 2 Country with a song called Cupid Must Have Been High. Released a debut single, I Love You But Shut Up. And she debuted 5 song albums, Coming Back to Me, on April the 7th, 2017, and nominated for 2 Country Music Awards. So I think she ended up going more into country, but yeah, like I said, haven't really heard much from her yet. She did play a role in Dreamboats and Petticoats, and she was in Emmerdale as someone's girlfriend. So yeah, she did end up doing little bits here and there, but yeah, nothing too much. Again, Janet Devlin. So she actually came 4th, I think it was, in the end. No, she came 5th. So she came 5th in the end. She actually won 4 of the live shows as well. So live show 2, 3, 4 and 5, she was the highest performing contestant within those. Again, she released a couple of albums and she has an incredible voice. She was in a documentary in 2022 called Janet Devlin, Young, Female and Addicted. She explored her own story of alcoholism and the effects it's had on her life. She was recognised in 2012 for her achievements on The X Factor, wrote 2 original songs, won some awards, and yeah, she basically explained that she hit many rock bottoms and that during her time on The X Factor she felt a lot of self-hatred and loneliness, bisexual, and has obviously been diagnosed with BPD and a bipolar disorder as well. So yeah, Hide and Seek, that was an amazing album. Running with Scissors, I think that was the second one. The rest I don't think I've listened to. But yeah, you had all sorts of songs. House of Cards, Saint of the Sinners, Wonderful, Creatures of the Night. They were some of the ones that I knew the most. And then yeah, music videos, a lot of them kind of directed by the same people: Gary Dunbill, Henry Steedman, Jeff Cockwell and Katja Granfeld. And again, very quiet since 2016-17, but yeah, that's just the power of what happens on these shows, unfortunately. You also had Misha B. So she released so many catchy songs. She's done loads of charity work. She's performed in front of all sorts of people. In 2012 and 13, she was part of the MOBO Awards. She was nominated for Best Newcomer, Best Breakthrough and Best Female Artist of 2012. She didn't win any of those, but she at least got nominated. Some of her biggest singles were Home Run, Do You Think of Me and Here's to Everything. I think all 3 of those, 3 of my favourite songs from her. She was in a song with Angel called Ride or Die and a song called Floodgates Part 2 with Charlie Brown. And she did an X Factor mashup in 2013, which I don't think peaked. It was just something that she did. And she was actually the opening act for the Pink Friday Reloaded tour. I think, from what I remember, that was Nicki Minaj. Yeah. So yeah, she was the opening act for Nicki Minaj back in 2012. Which to say you've opened for someone, let alone probably one of the biggest rappers, is incredible. Amelia Lilly, so she's only 4 years older than me, so she's now 31. Again, she did really, really well. She was first in a couple of the performances, and I think in the live show one, she basically was removed from the show, and I think it was just the winning people were not the winning people went through, and the losing people just went home. But yeah, I think they had 4 people that were. One of the 4 was going to come back as a wild card, and she was one of the 4. She was the one of the 4 who was able to come back. She, since being on the X Factor, has released the debut single "You Bring Me Joy," "Shut Up and Give Me Whatever You Got," "Party Over." Again, all 3 of those coming out within the years of 2013 and 2013. I think she was also on the stage production of American Idiot. I remember that because I think I actually went to see that. She's been at all different parties and festivals, such as the All Stars Summer Party and the Chester Rocks Chester Racehorse, both of which were alongside Jessie J and an artist called Lawson. She announced a single, California, with Warner Music, and she released the music video in 2014. She also featured an explicit version of California online, including 2 other new tracks, The Best of Me Yet and You Get Me. In 2017, she completed Celebrity Big Brother, and she left the house on day 25 as the runner-up before Sarah Harding. So I didn't realise a lot of the X Factor people end up going on to other shows. She was in Shrek the Musical as Princess Fiona. She joined MTV, Geordie Shore, and she started her own podcast called The Talent Factory Inside the Music Machine. Other artists that she credits and enjoys are people like Pink, Kelly Clarkson, and she even sang one of her songs in the quarterfinal, Since You've Been Gone. So yeah, she's been diagnosed with type 1 being diabetic. She's the half-sister of Lewis Bradley, who performed in Any Dream Will Do, and her dad, John Barry Oliver, was the manager of Billington Town. Her and her partner Eddie have welcomed their first child called Pearl on 23rd of May 2025 after keeping their pregnancy a secret. So again, a lot of great singles there. You Bring Me Joy, Shut Up and Give Me Whatever You Got, Party Over in California, and then also as one of the featured artists on Wishing on a Star, the 2011 version. And then again you had Marcus Collins, so he came second. Before auditioning in 2011, he was part of the 4-piece boy band Eton Road, who got through on the third series of the X Factor. He did not appear on the X Factor that year. He joined the band after the original member left due to exhaustion. Anthony performed over 150 gigs with the band. Again, some of his songs include Mercy, Seven Nation Army, which is a cover of the White Stripes, and then a variety of other singles as well. He was signed by RCA Records. He was in Hairspray. He performed in Kinky Boots the Musical. And as of 2023, no new recording contracts or albums have been confirmed or released. And he's currently, as of 2023, playing Andre and Mrs. Doubtfire at the Shaftesbury Theatre in London West End. So, again, he's someone that was probably more theatrical, obviously openly gay, and clearly got on really, really well with the Little Mix girls as well. And I think that was a really nice year of contestants as well. I don't think there's anyone that was overpowering anyone else, and they all genuinely seemed like they were all supporting each other. And then obviously you had my 4 girls at the top as well. So the 4 Little Mix girls, obviously we are aware that Jessie left in 2020, or they had some sort of disagreement. The other 3 girls carried on up until 2022, and then I think in 2024 they ended up all breaking up and doing their own thing. They obviously had Little Mix The Search, so that was their TV show where they kind of were trying to look for a band, not to kind of take on their footsteps or go forward from them, but to kind of have their own time in the spotlight basically, and have Little Mix kind of push them. Again, all sorts of headline tours, 2013, 14, 16, 17, 18, 19 and 22. They were the opening acts for Demi Lovato in 2014 and Ariana Grande in 2017, and they were also a guest performer for Taylor Swift's 1989 tour in 2015. They were also supposed to have a tour in 2020, but that was cancelled due to COVID. They were the second best girl group with their second highest selling single, Shout Out to My Ex, and that was only behind Wannabe by the Spice Girls. So again, an amazing single there. As of 2021, they've sold over 28 million singles with over 3.6 million albums, and they've released 31 top 40 singles, 19 of them in the top 10, 5 number ones, and they've got over 1.9 billion streams in the UK. In 2026, they became the first group to have all of their members also achieve a top 3 solo album on the UK album charts. So Jessie didn't release an album, but the other 3 did, and they managed to get all of their albums in the top 3. So that's an amazing thing within itself. But again, Little Mix is still going, and like I said, that was a fantastic year. James Michael, really, really attractive. I think I liked him with his curly hair and his hat. Don't really know what's happened to him since. But yeah, that's a story for another day. I'm just going to whiz through the rest of them now, because obviously the more recent we get, the more likely you are to know who these people are. So with this next year, we had James Arthur as the winner, Jermaine Douglas as second, both under Nicole Scherzinger. Chris Maloney, who I think he ended up going on to Big Brother as well. Union J, Rylan, Ella Henderson, Kai Sones, Lucy Spraggan, Jade Ellis, MK1, Melanie Mason, and again Carolyn Poole. So Carolyn was in this year again as well. So I think in the previous time that she auditioned, she got through to judges' houses. This year, she actually managed to get through to the live shows. So yeah, the only person that withdrew there was Lucy Spraggan. But yeah, I think the rest of them don't seem to have a page. But yeah, Ella Henderson. So obviously she's gone on to do some amazing songs and collabs and all sorts. She ended up having, so her singing teacher was friends with my old drums teacher, Rylan. You know, he had his moment where he cried at judges' houses. He's gone on to do some amazing things, hosting different TV shows, being on different TV shows. Union J, although the boy band did break up, but JJ Hamblett, Jamie Hensley, George Shelley and Josh Cuthbert have all kind of gone on to do their own things. I think, yeah, Casey was initially part of the band. He kind of went, and then George Shelley came in, and then they kind of ended up going as a three, and then we found out Jamie was gay, so there was all that sort of stuff going on as well. Again, Chris Maloney, so he was the last contestant eliminated in that year. Jermaine Douglas, he finished second and kind of goes into more like gospel and stuff. And then with James Arthur, yeah, we all know that he's done very well since the show as well. Series 10, and this was Sam Bailey's year. So Sam Bailey first, Nicholas McDonald, Luke Friend, Rough Copy, Tamira Foster, Hannah Barrett, Sam Callahan, Abby Alton, Kingsland Road, Miss Dynamics, Shelley Smith and Lorna Simpson. So yeah, again, I don't really remember many of these people. Sam Callahan, really, really attractive. Tamira Foster had a great voice. I think she kind of had a few issues and a few, issues with her performances, but she was given enough chances and she still managed to get fifth, which was fantastic. And again, you had Miss Dynamics, one of the girl groups that kind of just went out early. So yeah, not really much to talk about for that year, but again, a handful of great people. Ben Haynow, 2011. I think Ben was my favourite. Other than Little Mix, my favourite winner. So when we get to the actual overall results, I actually watched this one live. So I actually saw Ben Haynow, Fleur East, Andrea Faustini and Lauren Platt all in their final four. Yeah, Ben Haynow, an absolutely fantastic winner. Him and Fleur East were obviously both Simon Cowell's. Ben's gone on to do some amazing collabs, one with obviously Kelly Clarkson, Secondhand Heart. Fleur East, she's obviously gone on to do things like Sax. She now presents Kiss FM Radio. Andrea Faustini, again, an Italian contestant on the UK show. Didn't really understand it, but obviously he lived here. Lauren Platt, so she went on to do CBBC's Got What It Takes, which was a singing show which launched careers of, some, what we know, famous people. And she actually ended up portraying a character called Jack in Jack and the Beanstalk, Belle in Beauty and the Beast, and Aurora in Sleeping Beauty. So she's done a little bit since the show. Stereo Kicks, again, for me, I've really, really loved their band. And obviously, Casey Johnson, you want to recognise that name. He was in Union J the previous year and actually then auditioned within the group for this year. So very cheeky for him to jump from one band to another. But again, Barclay Beals, beautiful man. Jake Sims, beautiful man. The rest of them, again, they kind of just came and did their own thing. They did a song called Love Me So. That was their first and I think only single in 2015. They had 11 months together and obviously unable to land a record deal. They disbanded and their final performance was at Thorpe Park. So yeah, they did their one single and moved on from there. And then again, you had Only the Young as well. So the four of them were beautiful. You had Betsy Blue, Mikey Bromley, Charlie George and Parisa Tajamani. Again, they entered the 11th series of the X Factor, made the live shows. They were the 10th contestants eliminated. So they didn't do too awfully. They did survive until the final 6. But Parisa decided to leave the group. And then they disbanded later that month anyway. So Parisa and Charlie, they knew each other since they were children. Betsy was next to the band, and then they brought George Shelley in 2012. George Shelley then went on to audition for the 9th series of the show that year. He auditioned as a solo artist and then joined Union J. And then obviously he was replaced by Mickey Bromley. Before auditioning for the show, they auditioned for Capital Summertime Ball on 21st of June 2014. They were chosen to perform at Wembley alongside Pharrell Williams, Miley Cyrus, David Guetta, Enrique Iglesias, Little Mix, and many other artists. Didn't realise you had to audition for Summertime Ball, but that's a new thing. So yeah, they had a couple of songs. Again, I Do, which was their biggest song, and then the Monster Match as well. Series 12, so this is Louisa Johnson's year. I think she was the youngest contestant to win the show. Again, another one of my favourites to win the show. I'm really, really happy she won. I knew from her audition that she was going to be the winner. So yeah, she won. Reggie Mboli came up second. Che Chesterman, Lauren Murray, Fourth Impact, Anton Stevens, Mason Noyes, Monica Michael, Max Stone, Sean Miley Moore, Kira Weathers, Alien Uncovered, and Boopsy. They were your top 13. Again, Alien Uncovered, I met them at Summer 6. They were lovely, but again, they didn't really last. Again, Sean Miley Moore from Australia, so not actually from the UK, and he still got through to the show. Monica Michael from London actually ended up going to the same hairdressers as Manan. Mason Noyes, I think he rebranded himself because he was kind of known as the naughty boy, but I think he rebranded himself. Again, Fourth Impact from the Philippines, so again, they're not really British or from the UK, so I'm not really sure how they ended up going on to win. But Louisa Johnson, at 17 years old, won the 12th series of the show, and one of her first singles was with Clean Bandit on their song Tears. So that was absolutely fantastic. She sang songs such as Who's Loving You, Jackson 5, Lay Me Down, Sam Smith, and I'm Telling You by Jennifer Hudson. And she was mentored by Rita Ora. Again, she released a single, and she released her second single, So Good, in November of 2016. She announced in July the 18th, 13th of July 2018, that she'd left Psycho, and she had the release of her new single with the Ministry of Sound. She also had a single with One Bit, Between You and Me, and I think she also sang a song with Sigma, Here We Go Again, and Ain't Thinking About You by Eden Prince and Cream. I think she also did a song with Ollie Murs as well, Unpredictable, that was 2017. She had a collaboration with fitness clothing brand USA Pro. She promoted her new album Like I Love You, and in 2022 she released a collaboration with Jonas Blue called Always Be There. She explained in 2017 she was still friends and in touch with Rita Ora, and in 2018 she received backlash for comments she made as a schoolgirl in 2013, which repeated use of a homophobic slur. She apologised, saying that she was young and foolish, hanging around with the wrong crowd and didn't know any better. Hopefully that didn't ruin her career. But yeah, all sorts of amazing songs. So with Clean Bandit, AJR, Bridge Over Troubled Water with the whole artist for Grenfell, A Little Help from My Friends as part of NHS Voices, and then yeah, other guest appearances as well. She also appeared on Leave the Light On with Craig David in 2015. She was part of Ollie Murs' tour in 2017, Little Mix's The Glory Days tour 2017, and Westlife's The Wild Dreams tour in 2022. And then if we go through to Series 13, so the winner of this year was Matt Terry. He was mentored by Nicole Scherzinger, and the runner-up was Sarah Alto. So I think this is kind of where X Factor was not coming to an end, but I feel like it was kind of on its way out. So the only people that withdrew from this year were Brooks Way, which I think was two brothers, but the winner was Matt Terry, runner-up Sarah Alto, 5 After Midnight, Emily Middlemass, Honey G, again girl band 4 of Diamonds are in there as well. Freddie Parker, so he was gay, really, really nice guy. 4 of Diamonds, again another girl group. They were the 5th contestants eliminated, so they got a little bit further than some of the other groups, but they weren't on Little Mix's level. Sam Lavery, she ended up releasing a couple of singles. She now presents Kiss FM as well. Ryan Laurie and Emily Middlemass, I thought were, kind of like a couple, but they've actually now both rebranded, and they've both got slightly different names. I think Emily is now Illyri, and I think Ryan goes under a different name as well. 5 After Midnight, they were a good band, or 5 AM. Sarah Alto, don't really know what she's doing, but again, she's from Finland, so not really the X Factor UK, but she ended up coming second on the first season of The Voice of Finland in 2012. And then again with Matt Terry, he was the English singer. He sang a cover of Benny King's Stand By Me, which got him 4 yeses. He was dropped by RCA. He featured on a song with Enrique Iglesias in 2017 called Subeme la Radio. He released a song from his debut album Sucker for You, which actually peaked at 51. A second single called The Thing About Love. He performed on The X Factor as a guest performer and confirmed that his album was going to be released in November of 2017. That peaked at 51. The album peaked at 29. He was dropped in 2018 and made his acting debut as part of the UK production of Madagascar the Musical, returned in 2019 portraying the role of Alex the Lion. In October 2023 he announced his first single, You Don't Know Nothing. He released a song, Ghost of Me, and his single, His Car, was released on the 22nd of March with the singer basically opening up that he was gay. And he just says, on 22nd of March 2024, Terry revealed that he was gay. And then, he's done some stage stuff in 2018, 19 and 23. He's also performed at a variety of different prides. I think he was at London Pride in 2024. So, I think he's just kind of embracing and coming to terms with him and himself. So, lovely guy and very attractive. And obviously the second Matt to win the show as well. So, it's quite a lucky name because 5 or 6 years earlier, Matt Cardle won. In 2017, you had the winners were Raksu, the runner-up was Grace Davies, and the final took place in XL in London. So again, didn't really watch too much of this year, but Raksu were the winners, Grace second, and Kevin Davey White in third. Again, a variety of other handful of good acts there. You had Spencer Sutherland, so he's an American indie pop singer-songwriter. I think he was kind of already famous before being on the show, but it just kind of helped him blow up a little bit more. Talia Dean, she's done all sorts of stuff. Again, Alicia Bonabara, so she's a Filipino singer, so she actually participated in the second season of The Voice of the Philippines, coming runner-up. And then obviously she was on the 14th series of The X Factor as well. Raelle Williams, so she's from London, and her I kind of sort of basically pretty much always on my mind. That's the song that's always in my head. Holly Tandy, I recognise the name, don't really know. And then obviously Grace Davies, same sort of management as Janet Devlin, I believe, and she's been present since 2015 until now. She's had a variety of different singles. She ceased operations with Psycho in 2012, I think it was, and she released a song in 2024 called Illuminate, and it became the official song for the European Athletic Championships in Rome, Italy. And then, again, since then, she has still released music in 2024, 2025 and 2026 with her latest album called The Wrong Side of 25. So, she has a couple of other songwriting credits as well. But she was obviously supporting Janet Devlin on the Confessional Tour back in 2021, which is why and how I think the two of them got to know each other. And I think obviously they're now managed both by the same management, which is quite interesting as well. In terms of the judges, that's when Nicole Scherzinger, I think, came in. Alicia Dixon was a bit of a guest. Sharon and Simon were back. Louis was basically never gone. Even when he was gone, he was still there. The 15th series, so you had Simon Cowell, Robbie Williams, Ida Field and Louis Tomlinson, who were the judges, with Nile Rodgers as a guest. And it was just Dermot O'Leary here as a host by himself. The winner was Downton Harris, winning mentor Louis Tomlinson from One Direction, and the runner-up was Scarlett Lee. Again, I met Scarlett Lee. She's absolutely gorgeous. She's a lovely lady as well. And then when it came to the winning lot, so you had Dalton Harris first, Scarlett Lee second, Anthony Russell third. You had a guy called Brendan Murray in there, really, nice voice. And then the rest of them I didn't really know. I wasn't really following this year, I'll be honest. Again, you've kind of got someone there from Spain, someone there from Nigeria, someone there from America. So I think this kind of when the show was kind of coming to an end, basically. Dalton Harris was the winner, and I think he ended up performing his winning song with James Arthur as well. That was really, really interesting. And then, all the proceeds were going for Together for Short Lives and the Shooting Star case. And then there was some sound problems throughout the show, as per they usually were. But again, that was a very interesting, an interesting series. And the final, you had the X Factor, the band as well. So I think there was a special edition for that. The winners were Real Like You, which actually, in the winning group, one of the girls I actually knew. I would say I was friendly or friends with her, and yeah, she ended up performing at a couple of events that I'd been to. But yeah, it was quite an interesting show, and yeah, she's now gone on to do her own thing, which is really interesting. But yeah, Jess Foley, Virginia Hampson, Saoirse Jack, Luana Martinez, Hayley Williams, and Kelly Marie Willis were that girl group. The boys obviously came runner-ups, and again, Harrison Cole from the runner-up group, he and Luana are now dating, which is really interesting. So yeah, that girl group didn't really last long. They released a single with a teaser of an unreleased demo of Love Me or Not in January 2023. And in 2024, Hampson, so her first name Virginia, decided that the group had decided to disband and all the members would now pursue solo careers. And then when it came to, all their individuals, so Luana had actually auditioned for the 13th series of X Factor, where she got to the 6th chair challenge and failed to proceed further. She attended a sound school in Enfield, and her departure from the band was on the 9th of August 2022. She has later adopted the stage name Frankie, joined Kino, and obviously Loud London. So yeah, they did a couple of singles and yeah, didn't really go on from there. But that's kind of it in terms of the X Factor from 2004 all the way through to 2018. And then you had the X Factor celebrity version, where you had a load of random celebrities in different categories. And then you had X Factor, the band, as well. X Factor celebrity had Megan McKenna, who won. Max and Harvey came second. Jenny Ryan came third. And then a variety of people on here who I don't actually know. So yeah, that was kind of it in terms of the X Factor. And it kind of all brought me back to, people like Jedward, that performance that I saw at the club in Brighton, just because they're now not as famous as they were back then. It's not to say that they're not just going to all of a sudden blow back up. But yeah, a lot of my favourite artists, singers, people have come from these shows. You've got Stacey Solomon, you've got Jake Quickenden, Lauren Platt, Cher Lloyd, Dinah Vickers, Leon Jackson, Joe McElderry, Matt Terry, Matt Cardle, Ella Henderson. So yeah, there's so many amazing acts, and as much as these people probably don't want to be remembered as X Factor people, that's just how they're going to be remembered. But it's obviously down to them to almost transition into a different career or go down a different path, that it's like, okay, they may have started from there, but they've actually turned their lives around now, or they've used that platform in a positive way to speak about certain topics, or to get a partner, or to build a house, or to, be part of like an orphanage or something. So yeah, I think it's one of those interesting things of the industry can be negative, can be torturous, can be a bit, dangerous, depending on, how you deal with being in the spotlight and being shoved just straight into the limelight. But at the same time, it's like, if you do eventually become irrelevant, or you do fall out of love with the interest or the hobby of singing or performing, or being on stage, being like a circus monkey, almost having to feel like you have to perform, then at least you can use your platform to progress you into a different career or a different opportunity, or go back to a normal job. You'll just be the famous person of the office, but at least you've had the opportunity to push yourself in the right direction. You've had that few years of fame or extra money, or not having to stress about things, and you shouldn't fall too far on your feet as long as you've not gone down a dodgy route or mixed with the wrong crowds and things like that. So, but yeah, that was my podcast about Jedward, seeing Jedward at a club. I have seen Little Mix live, I have seen Dinah Vickers live, I've seen a lot of the X Factor people live. I think I've been to about 9 or 10 of the X Factor live show tours. But it's one of those things that, I don't really have the merchandise for them. I don't really have any of the memorabilia from it, because it was all from when I was younger. But just having those moments in my head of like, I remember these people. These people were just normal people. They just had a great voice, great personality, a great stage presence. I touched Louisa Johnson's finger. She walked past me at the X Factor tour. Her finger touched my finger. I've touched X Factor winner royalty. But yeah, it's just it's been an amazing journey. I'm very, very sad the show is over. But any network or collaborations or opportunities where I can talk to these people, meet these people, work with these people, write with these people. I would love to sit and write with some of these people. You know, a lot of them I have mutual interactions with, or, you know, every so often there'll be a comment on something, but to actually sit down and write down with someone who's gone through that process, or write a podcast or a TV show, or create a music video with someone who knows the music industry, or who knows what it was like back then, how can you create something a bit more relevant now, I'd absolutely love to do that. So I'm going to stop talking, because I think I've been speaking about the X Factor for quite a long time, and I'm not going to be editing this podcast, so I'm just going to kind of leave it as it is. But yeah, I do hope you did enjoy this podcast. If you did watch the show, the UK version, the American version, any other country version, who and why, who is your favourite artist from whichever series or whichever year, why, and have they made a comeback, have they stopped on their music, have they jumped into a different industry? So yeah, just let me know, because there were so many kind of backstories and so many things that were going on the show, and disagreements and arguments and dating and creations of groups and breakups of groups, and, you know, groups arguing with each other. And I think that's the thing, as the general public, we are never going to know the full story of every single thing that happened, every single performance, every single live show, every single backstage moment, interview, limelight moment, you know, drunk moment. We're not going to know about every single thing that's happened, apart from what we hear, what we see, what Simon Cowell obviously reveals, and obviously what people from the show, you know, the creatives behind the production, the people that worked on the set, the lighting, the crew, the audience people. There could have been people in the audience who 5 years later became X Factor contestants. You just never know. You know, someone in 2006 has been supporting and whatever Leona Lewis, and then 5 years later they end up becoming the winner of the show, or they end up becoming 7th on the show. So it's just very weird to just know who was where when certain series were going on, but that's always something to speculate on, and it's yeah, we'll never know the full truth of every single thing that happened on that show. But from what I saw, and from, like I said, from 2008 onwards, that's when I started kind of taking the show a bit more seriously. And I think from Little Mix, once they won, I was like, you know what, that's me sold. Like, that's the best thing and the best series I've ever seen. And there was a couple of good winners after that, and then yeah, 2016, 2017, 2018, that's when it kind of started slipping away, and, you know, the show unfortunately ended. But I wouldn't put it past Simon or the production company or Psycho in general for them not to bring it back later in life if they, you know, revamp it up. But I don't know if it's just one of those things now, it's had its time, move on to something else, bring something different, or yeah, try and revamp it later on in life. But we'll never know. But yeah, if you did enjoy my review, if you did enjoy my podcast, don't forget to like, comment, share and subscribe. I'm sure there were many speaking errors in this podcast, but I'm not going to edit it. It's not that I don't care. I just want to be as natural as possible. I don't want to sit here editing like out of everything I do. And the longer you listen, the more watch time I get as well. So why am I going to cut it down by half an hour when you can just be giving me half an hour of pennies? So yeah, without any further ado, I'm going to love you and leave you all. And yeah, any ideas for podcasts, let me know, and I'll do those as soon as I can. Until then, thank you for listening, and goodbye.